The rest are being made in China right now.
Yeah.
And check this out. Okay, so first of all, my life has only become more weird and more Indiana Jones since we've left the Crystal Skulls. It's the most real thing I've ever experienced. I've gotten given to me through synchronicity 1, 2, 3 locations, 3 more locations of skulls. I'm like in conversations with the holders of certain skulls, and just intimately understanding what these actually mean for humanity and what they imply is profound. I mean, it implies certain technologies of food that will feed the world. It implies just an external reflection of us piecing ourselves back together. As we do that, it'll be reflected through the piecing back together of the 13, which represents literally the foundational lineage of every religion and mystery school on the planet. So, and then it also represents giving us our full, true history, like what actually happened throughout the hundreds of thousands of years. So there's so much, and it's so real. And we're working with, like, Nassim Haramein is in on this. I'm talking with his employees, and we're gonna take the skull to the lab, the Mitchell Hedges skull, and have him take a tiny piece of it and actually officially date it as a 12,000-year-old skull.
Wow.
Which for the scientific community is going to start to really open up their minds. And we're so much. I'm getting these harmonic activations, tonal activations given to me and sent to me from the Yael, a different star race. And the 13th, we're going out to Joshua Tree to experience like full-blown contact. They're not going to land their ships, but Bashar, for the first time in 30 years, was cleared. Get this, Solara. It was cleared. And what I'm telling you right now, I swear, this is like a crouton on the salad. There's so much that's happened. For the first time in 30 years, he goes, this is the first time I've been cleared to tell you where to go to experience ships and contact and to see things, ships and interdimensional beings. I can tell you where contact is going to take place and where you can even have telepathic contact with those beings if you're on the right frequency. I've never been able to do this before, but now that you're meeting us, we can actually start to give you places where portals and vortexes will open for this sort of thing. Yeah. And so the 13th in Joshua Tree is the place. And as soon after he gave that transmission, we went on our nutritional break, as he calls it, and then all of a sudden, the microphone, all of the sound equipment starts going haywire. So loud. We're like holding our ears, and then it stops, and there's just a heartbeat going over the sound systems. Boom, 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 boom. And Daryl, the channel for Bashar, is looking around, looking at the audio people. Hey, what's happening? We don't know. Nothing's wrong. Boom, boom, and it just slows down for about 15 seconds. And then when Bashar comes back in, Bashar said, what just happened needed to happen. What we just did is we took over your equipment so we can put our heartbeat next to yours so you can realize how close we really are. And he said, and when you sync up your heartbeat with ours, we will have contact. And it was just such a magical experience.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, a lot more. I mean, he told me the real purpose of these symbols in this is, he told me that I created for myself a very strong channeling device, and how I've only created half of it, and how one half is meant to be on my heart and the other is meant to be placed on the channeling chakra. We call it the mouth of God, this little chakra here where the skull and the spine meet. He says that's the channeling chakra. That's where all the information from the higher realms comes from. Yes. But it goes in a direct line between that and the heart. And if you have this with this symbol on one end and on the other, you will create a conduit, he said, word for word, that will make your head explode. That's what he said. Yeah, so much fun stuff.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Just taking that in. I mean, I'm just receiving the activation of it as you're expressing, just waves and chills, all of the frequencies moving through my system.
Yeah.
And really feeling, did you see the photo that I recently shared at the top of my Facebook page with the gold skull?
No. Should I take a look real quick?
Yeah. So I had it. So a gold skull given to me, and
wow.
so it's pyrite, but in the moment, right, all I could, I mean, I was just in the field with us in the kitchen having the conversation about the gold skull and feeling the majesty and the purity and the beauty and the royal love of that energy just circulating throughout the space. And there were 2 whole days. So I have one in my space now, right next to me, actually, a biomat, a crystal biomat. And this I was at that time, the universe keeps giving me crystal biomats. And I was just in such a field of peace, receiving wave after transmission. You know how when the attunements are happening, you can hear it was just constant back and forth between, and I just, I was just receiving and tuning into the.
Wow. Yeah, it's beautiful. Wow.
Yes. I'm so I was going to ask you how your experience with Bashar was. And that's the other thing that Source and all of these intelligences keep bringing me to is it's the synchronicity. It's the synchronization with our heartbeat. And when it's in that space of passion and excitement, it's our high heart.
Yeah.
And just the portal.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. He talks about how the matching, first of all, he talks about how the matching of our heartbeats with someone else in such a profound way is what creates that telepathic connection where you just know what another person is going to say exactly when they're going to say it. Yeah. And what I thought was really interesting, he's explained before how we are connected at the heart, in a sense, to spirit. And that's why the heart can't get cancer. Certain parts of the heart, you can't get cancer because the frequency is too high. Because that's where our connection is. And then that goes to the brain. And then there's our own physical, our physical brain, and then our mind. And the mind, with our belief system, filters everything that is directly and unaltered light into the heart, and then filters on the way up to the brain as it's being expressed through our own filter. And that's what brings that white light into whatever light we choose. Or we have a very transparent belief system that just allows it to be expressed exactly as it's received, which is, again, the channeling state. We need to start going live. I feel like even if we just recorded this, everyone would be so fired up.
Well, I am recording and we can clip it to.
Oh yeah, we are. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So let's just dive in, and I'm super open to what feels most electric and alive for you right now. If you want to delve into different facets of the 13, or if we want to go into the skulls. Any of that.
Let's just see where it goes. I love questions and prompts. I call them opening doors. So if there's any doors that you want to open, then that will give me a little direction, and then I can open that door, see where it goes.
Okay, so let me just tune in for a moment. I'm going to grab a couple crystals. Malachite.
There's shit in there for flavor. You look at the ingredients for flavor.
So let's tune in a bit to the age of Aquarius, diamond age, golden age, Uranus in Taurus. So there's this profound transit. So Uranus is actually the planet of Kundalini, life force, electricity, revolution, systematic, restructuring, and all of this, art, liberation, freedom. And it's actually in the sign of, it's in the sign of Taurus right now, and then it shifts into Gemini, and then it shifts into Cancer over the next 21 years. And this is a transit that we haven't seen on our planet in well over a century. And so what I tune into when I tune into that energetic is just the amount of transcendence, liberation, revolution, all of
Yeah.
that photonic light actually starting to come online on the planet. And so it's a highly exponential energetic. And so I'm curious, in the lives of individuals and in the lives of the collective, what you feel the exponential nature of our evolution is here within the next decade or two, what that looks like.
Yeah. And we're live now, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we're not technically live, but we're recording. I'm going to have to upload it afterwards until I...
Oh, I see. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So that's really good. So first thing is I would say, as these motorcycles pass with their beautiful vibrations activating my DNA, that we live in a celestial speed up. And all that really means is not necessarily time itself is speeding up, but our perception of time is speeding up. And the paradox is that because we live more in the now, we can actually observe. Constant is, hold on, my screen is totally just freaking.
Mm-hmm. Is there a space around you too that's a little bit more quiet potentially? The frequencies, here we go. I love it.
We are. This is a little better.
Yeah.
Wow, I just have this beautiful little space. How funny is this? Just, okay, universe, just put some chairs under a tree. You know?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll sit here. So, let me just get in this one, a little more shade. There we go. So, like I was saying, the time seems to be speeding up, and it's not that time actually is speeding up, because one aspect of creation that doesn't change is actually the rate at which change occurs, because the only constant is change, and there's an actual rate at which reality changes and flickers from particle to wave, in and out, in and out. That's essentially what the Big Bang really is. It's a momentary destruction and recreation of reality, and there's an actual measurable rate that this occurs at, and it's 10 to the, I might be wrong by a couple points, but I think it's 10 to the 43rd times per second. That's hundreds of thousands of billions of times per second. So we can't perceive it. It's not like I'm looking at the tree and all of a sudden I could see it as blink in and out of reality, although that is possible. Mm-hmm. And so because we're living more in the moment, we're actually being able to observe that structure more closely as we slow down. And because we can observe it more closely, and the structure by its nature is what we would call really fast, we then experience things speeding up. Mm-hmm. So that's the paradox. And because we are in this time, in this place, the high fourth dimensional reality or fourth density reality, we can allow things like time and space, which are really two sides of the same coin, to start expressing themselves very differently. Mm-hmm. Start becoming a lot more flexible. A lot of the deja vu occurrences, a lot of the Mandela effects, we call them Mandela effects, and we think they're faulty memories, or in psychology they call it a confabulation. What we're actually doing is we're starting to experience life more multidimensionally, and realizing that even if I have a memory that contradicts your memory, there's not a right or wrong. They are both independent, parallel, coexisting realities in the now that we're both connecting to, and they can both coexist. Mm-hmm. And so things like this are only going to continue to happen. You might find yourself, getting in the car and then starting to drive, and then all of a sudden you're at the destination. You're like, what happened to the in-between time? And you kind of skip over those frames. Mm-hmm. And things just kind of happen. It's only going to get more weird. And it's very important at this time that we understand I always break it down into two parts. Number one, there's knowledge, which is simply understanding how things work. And then number two, there's the idea of knowing thyself, like we just spoke about, which is the tools and the awareness to move through our own belief systems that may be in the way of our ability to act on our passion and be ourselves.
Oh, this is stunning. So I would love to explore. Well, one, I just want to celebrate the weird, because I love it brings that exhilaration, that electricity online for me, because of the slowing down that creates the exponential rate of change itself, or allows us to perceive the exponential rate of change. So that loving that paradox, and how we can masterfully curate our reality when we tune into those dimensional awarenesses. And this is something I call precision creation, because when we tune in to our capacity to shift and pivot at that pace, everything in the hologram shifts with us. And it's a profoundly powerful technological capacity that we all have to create accelerated change in the inner and in the outer world, and to stay aligned to the realities that we so choose for ourselves, and so we can experience that more. And so this notion of knowing thyself, so this starts to it's a transcendental field of, I would say, the sixth dimension and beyond. So it's the portal of the open, expanded heart, where we are then being that energy. So there's no obstructions, there's no blocks, there's no
full transparency.
Right. So all of the things that we are working to either release or clear or cleanse from our field and our auric sphere, we just become that wide open field of pure creation itself. And then we live and we act and we dance from that space. So what would you say has been a powerful way for you to access those dimensions of your own being, and that might be very useful tools for anyone who's tuning in to actually allow that energetic into the body and into the field, so that they can resonate on those higher dimensional octaves?
Yeah, I love that. So my first response in the most simple way would be passion. It would be excitement, and actually understanding what excitement is. And so excitement is your physical body's translation of who and what you really are. It's not just a fancy feeling. It's not just something that is nice and that feels good. It implies an entire equation of physics that says, what I'm feeling now is not only the path of least resistance for me, but it's also of the highest expression for all that is, meaning all the people I'm around, meaning beings that I have no awareness of from this perspective on different sides of the universe, for nature, for everything. God's mind, you could say in that sense, takes into consideration all of those variables, because there is a self-organizing principle within nature, and excitement is what allows you to start, I guess, getting into the flow where the self-organizing can start taking place. So there's the self-organization principle that comes along with acting on your excitement. And it's not just on your excitement, it's with no insistence of an outcome. Because so many times we go, if I act on my joy, it's really joyful for me to make $1 million next week. And so I'm going to act on my joy, but it's only exciting because I think it's going to give me $1 million next week. That's one of the easiest ways to get out, to be pulled out of flow, to be out of the moment, because in a sense, part of you is living in the future, and there is no future. And if what you truly need can only be found in the now, and you're not in the now, then what you need can't find you. It's like you're not home. So what does excitement and passion actually do? It actually brings us into the now. We experience timelessness. Time just flies by. Our brain goes into a gamma state, which is the most cohesive and synthesizing of information that our brain can get in. Our telomeres lengthen, which is responsible for lifespan. The self-organizing principle of synchronicity. So you start noticing things happening at the right time in the right way, be it during the conversation when you needed it, these sort of things. You activate the entire support system, meaning anything that you need to continue on that path. whether it's money, relationships, resources, inspiration. That's really, like, you can call that the path of abundance. So it's the path that will support you entirely. And it's also the path that will reflect back to you your fear. So a lot of times I would say when we claim who we are, all that we are not shows up. What does that mean? The moment I really start acting on my excitement, well, anything that's going to anchor me in a sense or keep me in my old identity or my old ways is going to come up to be integrated. So first, it's about understanding, okay, my excitement and passion is really a complete formula. It's a complete kit. It will guide me through synchronicity and through life in the way that is appropriate and relevant. And this is my favorite part. And that is the most exciting for me. So like when I was sharing with you, I'm on this whole Indiana Jones hunt with the 13 crystal skulls. For me, that's a specific frequency that lights me up in a way that nothing else can right now. And for you, it'll be different. For someone else, it'll be different. For someone else right now, it might be farming and it might be going to take a nap. It just depends, it's all different. And so that's the first part of understanding, okay, excitement and passion is the true guiding mechanism of my life because it's actually who I am. It allows me to get in touch with my essence, and things that to me represent my passion, they represent my passion because they are most me. They are most of a reflection of me. And that's why I find myself in my passion. And so that's the first step. And the second step is knowing how to respond to moments of fear when you start to act on your joy, because it could just start in this moment. If the most exciting thing for you to do out of the choices you have available, the most exciting thing to do is go do some art. And that's all you need to do. And you need to take it as far as you can until that shifts, until that energy signal shifts into something else. And when you start doing that, you might start doing that. It might lead to a phone call. It might lead to whatever it may lead to. And then all of a sudden a fear may come up. It's in that moment one of the most important parts of allowing this to work, because it's not that you have to make it work. It's always working. It's either working against you or it can work for you. And so to allow it to work in that moment of experiencing negativity, we have to learn integration, the art of integrating those beliefs that come up, and have the tools to do that.
So this is extraordinary. A couple of things that come up for me in this space, and I'm going to take a journey to the kitchen to grab some coconut water.
Perfect.
So a couple of things that come up is on the bioenergetic level, what excitement is, and in our capacity to actually course free energy through our body in some of the ways that we can support ourselves with that. So, excited molecules or vibration, when we have been feeding ourselves with, one, hydration is the most important. Well, hydration, sleep, being in nature, and receiving high levels of photonic energy and light. So things like blue-green algae and superfoods and anything that is highly bioactive and alive to give to ourselves so that that energy can flow through unobstructed and create a friction-free flow. And then another piece, just to bring in a little bit of the practical health aspects. And then another thing that comes up. So in those moments of fear, yes, this is so, in my own experience, I find this so fascinating when this comes up, because I will just, liberating ourselves into our flow of joy and knowing that we are free to do so, and that it is safe and to our highest benefit to do that and trust that. So liberating ourselves from all the self-constructed paradigms that would anyway keep us limited or trapped in our own self-constructed cages. And so to open and let go into that field of transcendence and following that flow and acting on it intuitively from moment to moment to moment. And then when those fears come up or something arises in our physical reality that might catalyze that, one of the, and I would love to explore with you what you specifically do in those spaces. And for me, something that has been a prominent mantra and a reminder is that, everything is working out for me, but it's actually, it's following the golden thread is the way that I like to look at it.
Exactly.
So I look at that thing when it arose and I go, how is this perfect? And how is this
Nice.
in service to me in this moment? And how can I celebrate it? Even though it might appear to some dimension of my mind or my conditioning or programming that it's something, quote, bad or something wrong, how is it actually serving me?
Yeah. Yeah. You reminded me of a couple mantras. I wasn't even going to go into these, but you reminded me of them. One of them was, I'm willing to see peace instead of this. Another one was, this must be here to serve me exactly how it is. And there was another one that was, I don't remember what it was, but the overall attitude, I think, is what is informing those words, which is, if it is, then it must be the most important thing in my life right now. If there's fear here, it must be the most important thing in my life. I need to stop. Like, that's the major thing. Oh, fear's here. Stop what I'm doing. And this is way more important than the productive thing that I think I need to do. This is way more important than anything else because it's here and now, and vibrationally, I'm ready to let it go. And so I'm almost like, I need to take advantage of this moment. Not that if you don't, you're going to miss it. Trust me, you'll recreate it over and over. But you'll have a moment to say, this is a moment where I'm now powerful enough. I'm now strong enough, even if you want to use those words, to look at this and let it go. And then it just comes down to actually understanding the mechanics of integration, which, simply put, most of us believe that when we find the belief that is at the core of the suffering, that's the beginning of the process. Mechanically speaking, that's the end. Now, we can have many kinds of processes, and whatever process you believe will work, do that, because you want to take the path of least resistance. And so if it's burning a letter and doing a whole ceremony around something and that works for you, do that. Just know it's not the ceremony that's doing it. It's your belief that the ceremony is going to override your belief. So you're still doing it. So this is when we take our power even back away from positive rituals, which I've had my own experience of realizing, what's the most powerful process? Oh, not needing a process for this. And again, it's all in due timing. I still use processes. Processes are great. We came for a process. It's just about being in right relationship with the idea of process. But as far as the mechanics, I'll just give you the quick formula of the transmutation and how that occurs. The first part is awareness. And so we can't change that which we're not aware of. The true definition of a habit is, I'm doing something I don't know I'm doing. Well, you can't really do much about that, can you? Because you don't know you're doing it. The moment you're aware of it, it's no longer a pattern. It's no longer a habit. It's a choice. That's the first part, because most of us go, well, I have this pattern. And in that moment, just that one phrase, we're saying it's something that we can't control, something that we're not choosing for some reason. And so we feel a victim to it. We feel like it is just a thing that controls us. So we go, wait a second, I'm making this choice. I'm making a choice. That's the first piece. I'm becoming aware of the choice I'm making. What is the choice? Bring awareness to it. I'm becoming aware that I'm really angry at you. Okay. The second step is to acknowledge and accept the belief. Okay. And this comes with understanding that you can't have an emotion without a belief or a definition about something first, because emotion is just feedback. You don't have a spontaneous emotion. You have to have some sort of belief in place that informs that creates that. And so if you feel angry at someone, you go, I must be believing something ultimately about myself, that this person, this circumstance, in relationship to this environment is bringing up within me. You can play with surface level beliefs. You can go, I believe it's wrong for that person to protest. That's okay. They could protest. Okay, I'll let that go. And you could play with that and let that go. That's fine. But if the behavior continues, there's a core belief, and all core beliefs are always about ourselves. And if you get to the core, you collapse the entire structure. Or you could play at the top and collapse it from the top down. I'll tell you from experience, it's easier to go deeper, to go to the core, which is always typically something around self-worth, being loved, and these sort of ideas. And so the moment we acknowledge the belief, whatever it is, I'm not deserving, I'm not loving, acknowledgement implies unconditional acceptance and allowance of the emotion of the feeling of the moment with your full attention. That is as simple as taking a breath into something. That's as simple as going, oh man, there's a lot of pain here. Let me go into that. All of that is what's there. Let it be. This is here. It's as simple as that, as just letting it be there without saying, I'm bad for feeling sad. I'm bad for feeling angry. It's just acceptance of the emotional piece. That literally will pop your vibration up a little bit because you're going from resistance to acceptance. So you just go, it's okay for me to be upset. It's okay for me to, right? Welcome to being human. Like,
Right.
this is our job to go through the emotional scale. Like, oh, I feel worthless. Great. I'm doing my job right. I'm being human. Cool. So that's okay. Now that that's okay, I pop up a little bit. Now from that rise in frequency, I'm capable of reaching the belief system, because the belief system is actually on a higher frequency than thought and emotion. It's actually the highest frequency within our energetic template. It's the highest because it's the blueprint. Think of it like this. Here's the blueprint level. Everything is informed from the blueprint. Our thoughts, our behavior, all the things. So you have to go higher. This is why forcing someone to dig deep, find the belief. What is it? Like, this has to be a negative process, is usually keeps us stuck in lower frequencies. And even when we think we find a belief, we're actually not finding it. We're just making something up to satisfy the moment. And then we're stuck in a loop because we're feeling so negative. We just want to get out of the negativity.
Right.
So this is why it's so important to make this process as fun as possible, and really allow people to enjoy the process, create a new relationship with this process of integration. But really at that point, all you're doing is you're acknowledging the belief. The moment you discover the belief by asking the question, what am I making this mean about myself? Or another question that is really good is, what's the scariest thing I can imagine happen? And why is that so scary? And usually you'll go right into the fear as soon as you acknowledge it. And here's the thing about this formula. This formula is actually not a process. This formula is actually a frequency. And it's actually all an effortless, automatic deconstruction, you could say. But I kind of put it in a formula because it's hard for us to say, oh, it's just a frequency. Let me tune in and transmute this. Most of us aren't at that place. Right. And I still get caught up with that place. And there's sometimes I just go, oh, I recognize it, and boom, it's gone. And there's times where I need to process. And there's times where I've been in a process for an hour. Man, I'm really in this, So, but from that point, you go, okay, if I acknowledge the belief as valid, it might not be what I prefer, but it's valid as a creation of God. It is. That's okay. The moment that I acknowledge it, by definition, I will then have to see that it doesn't make any sense. Because now that you allow yourself to see it fully, you'll see its nature. And the nature of a negative belief is that it cannot be actually true.
Yes.
This is the fundamental fallacy of all negative beliefs. Nothing negative can be true about you, but you'll only let it go when you come to that conclusion yourself.
Yes.
That's why a lot of other people, they're saying, well, don't you see, just let it go. It doesn't make any sense. If it doesn't click for you, it doesn't matter what anyone else says. You have to come to that realization of, wait a second, is this a fact? Is this true? Is this my belief? No. And the moment you see through it and that it doesn't make sense, done. You found it. You see it doesn't make sense. Your mind can't hold on to anything that doesn't make logical sense. It's like me saying, hey, Solara, my hand is green. You just can't believe me. No, it's pretty sure it's not. Right? So it's just logic. So that's how we use logic to literally rewire the brain. And then as a byproduct of that, you could say this is an additional step, but it's actually just an automatic function. Now that that's released, its opposite belief takes hold. Well, if I'm not unworthy, I'm worthy. And then that means I'll act as a worthy person will act. So you'll naturally just flow into a new pattern of behavior. Unless you think that change has to be hard and you have to know what the new belief is, you have to know this, you have to do this, you have to reinforce it, you have to recondition for 7 years to, right? All this crazy stuff.
Yeah.
That's not actual facts, that are just opinions. Unless you want to believe in that, you can make the process more difficult than that. But that is mechanically as simple as it gets.
Right. This is stunning. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
For you and your transmission. There's a few different points I was taking notes on as you were sharing. And the thing that just arises, two things I'll pinpoint are the automatic nature of this and how it's if we can imagine orbiting through space and time on some dimension, we're kind of going through that orbit in our own unique way. And we're clearing out and we're anchoring in. We're clearing out and we're anchoring in. And the whole thing can be fluid and seamless if we allow it to be. So there's a dimension of, so what I've realized, because this is one of the things that was actually slowing down my flow, is that I was actually taking so much time to savor and to appreciate that it became like, okay, great, we get it, we hear you, like keep moving into the next moment. And so taking on that same energetic with my fears and just becoming aware in the moment and being with it fully, but allowing it to be a fluid, okay, I'm here. I feel the feeling of it when it comes up. And then I can adopt curiosity. So curiosity has been such a saving grace for me because it allows me to, from a space of wit, go into my own mind and go, wait a minute, is that true? And actually, that's kind of a fascinating story. Where did you, when and where did you conjure that up?
Yeah.
And then I can have this more playful dialogue with myself around the story, and I can kind of let
I
it
do
go.
so many similar things. Like sometimes I literally just talk out loud and I'm like, oh, fear, hey, you're here, good to see you. What do you have to say to me? And I'm literally doing this in my car, like in traffic. Oh, that I think if you do this, this is going to happen, and that. Oh, well, what's so scary about that? I'm like, I'm telling you, that is so effective. Just because of who you're being in the moment. There's no resistance. You're having fun with it while acknowledging that you are afraid of something, that fear is here. And you just shortcut that process, and then you don't fear. And so if you don't resist resistance, you just tend to not need to create more situations filled with resistance.
Right. That just becomes such a sparse occurrence. And one of the so something that I love to do too with fear is if there's anything that I feel like I want to separate off from in a profound way, and it's not coming from a place of empowerment and self-love and all of this, I'll look at that thing or that activity or whatever it is I'm being called to step into, and I will pull it into my heart space. So instead of trying to clear it or divert from it in any way, I'll actually just make it one with me, and power comes online, more power, because I'm like you
you're
said,
including it.
Right. So
powerful.
it's like it's so powerful and it's so liberating simultaneously, because we discover that the thing we were afraid of isn't scary at all, and we set ourselves free.
And that is really the essence of integration. Like what you just said was, I'm not getting rid of anything. People say, I want to get rid of my fears. Well, good luck, because they already exist and they can never not exist. So good luck getting rid of them. They're pretty much as permanent gets, but you can have a different relationship with them. You don't need to choose them, but they, as a option, as a choice in the field, are there. And there's this illusion that I often see in the spiritual community that, the more enlightened I get, the less negativity I'll experience. Now, yes, you may experience less negativity, but you're going to become aware of more negativity because you're becoming more aware of the self. And what is the self? The self is all that is. And what is contained within the reflection of all that is? Positivity, negativity, and neutral energy. That's the Trinity. And so as you expand your sense of self, you're expanding your sense of everything, of God. And God is allowance of all things. And so as you expand, you go, I'm not only aware of more positivity, I'm aware of more negativity too. It's just from this perspective, I get to choose my relationship to the negativity, and I get to just observe the negativity as an equal and valid choice that at this stage simply doesn't serve me. And there's this is what I'm fascinated with right now. There's this whole stage of consciousness where we make choices that are just based in the obvious, like that's so obvious that it wouldn't serve me. It doesn't make sense. It's more of a logical function. It doesn't make sense for me to choose fear in this situation because I actually see that that would do no one any good. No service would really be for me to choose that. So it's not that I'm just fearless. It's that choosing fear cannot make sense to me because it's so much harder, you know? And so now we're just going, oh, someone goes, oh, you know, you go on stage. What if something goes wrong? Well, it doesn't make any sense to even think that's a possibility.
Right.
I can't even have that question. What's wrong? What does that even mean? Like, I can't even consider that because it's so illogical at this, you know, and that's like, feels like a whole nother stage of discernment.
Totally. Well, yeah, I mean, you release that from your perceptual library, and this gets into well, one of my favorite, so like you were mentioning earlier, and I would say that this is in Crowley's texts or any great magician, they speak to the adept magician where the only tool that he or she utilizes is their own intertechnology. And so it's the release of all, unless of course it feels fun and flow and our highest joy to do a ritual.
Right.
So one of the most delicious, just scrumptious places for me to go is into belief configuration. So if I can construct a paradigm or open a portal to a new world in my mind, and I can believe and feel that possibility to be true inside of my own body, then the rate at which I align to that timeline is exponential. And there's no limit to how we can play in that field and start to configure different beliefs that are ultimately creative in their function.
Yeah, that's so powerful because there's two things that brought up. Number one, see, this is door opening. This is door opening 101. Like, you're really good at opening doors. You know, these two doors just open so clear in my mind. First one being that the experience is really all that's real. And so the fact that you're having that subjective experience, we can only have a subjective experience. Like, reality in of itself is subjective outside of the 5 laws that objectively govern the universal subjective experience. So in a sense, it's both. Anyone trying to find out, is it subjective or objective? It's the wrong question. You can't find answers there. Why don't you think we've been able to find an answer to that question? Because it's an unanswerable question. The real question is, how is it both? How do we fuse, instead of being confused, how do we co-fuse these ideas of it being objective and subjective at the same time, and then both being equally valid? And so having that experience in your mind is just as real as an experience of having it in this physical reality or in the dream reality, because really the soul takes the experience and it's the information of the experience. It's the having of a new experience from a linear time-space perspective that causes the soul and thus the universe to expand. And so it's really about, I'm doing this for the experience, not for the results, not for the outcome, because this is who and what I am, and there's nothing else that I'd rather be doing.
Right. And even being in the field of that configuration itself is the outcome, is the result, is the desired experience. And with that, it'll generate new realities entirely. And something that just arose as well as you were speaking was confusion. So I just want to put a little spin on confusion and bring some new options for how we might experience that. So the word confusion, if we break it down, is actually con, which means with, and fusion. And so when we enter into these spaces of catharsis or chaos or all of this, and we're experiencing great poles and duality within ourselves, and we're going back and forth rapidly, and we are experiencing a lot of our own potentially negative belief structures. We're lost. We're not sure where we're going. All of these things that arise. There is actually a profound upgrade that is trying to take place within our being. So if we look at, I imagine you've seen these where they put the salt on the vibration plate and then and it shifts into more expanded geometrical.
The geometry, yeah.
So when that geometry is going up an octave frequentially, at the set pattern that it's currently at its vibrational wavelength, it's in a certain pattern. When it shifts into the new pattern, it gets shaken up.
Has to disrupt, yeah.
Yep, a total disrupt. And then it expands out into a greater harmonic field of itself. And so it transcends and includes the previous pattern. So when confusion arises, if we can actually identify it and surrender into it rapidly, the calibration and the synthesis happens at a more accelerated pace, and then clarity comes online. So we can actually evolve through confusion quickly if we have a willingness to surrender to it.
That's so powerful, because one of my favorite definitions of confusion, like I alluded to, is the idea of co-fusion. And co-fusion is fusing two ideas that seem to be diametrically opposed, complete opposites. How could it be this and that? And you're at a moment where an entire paradigm is, in a sense, falling apart, and you're being invited to recreate a more multi-dimensional, expanded point of view that includes both ideas. And there's a third idea that's then born. It's not this idea or this idea, or what do I do in this relationship? What do I do here? I'm so confused. What's the right choice? I feel like there's this one or that one. And it's usually kind of a duality, a right or wrong kind of experience. I'm so confused about these two contradicting things. Usually you're being invited into a third, more balanced point of view. And so it's going, what's the third point of view?
Right.
Which just represents the integration of the two into a more, organized experience, more, I guess, a path of least resistance that can emerge from those two things. So, like you said, those moments should be completely celebrated. That my operating system to move forward, it's like a new iOS update. It's like, this new program can't run on this old operating system. Now that this new program is here, it must mean I'm ready for it. That must mean there's a new operating system. So what may that be? I must be ready for that now.
Yes. It's so good. I love those moments of, catharsis, where we actually just get to be with the shifting of the energy and some of the, in those moments, because sometimes it can be quite intensified depending on the calibration and what we've asked for and what we're allowing ourselves to expand into. So this is where, primal rituals come online for me to just to move the energy even, and to have a way to not necessarily analyze it, because I think that's fun sometimes to actually step back and analyze all the stories and just kind of get into what I would consider true empathy, being able to actually inhabit a story or a frame from a perception that is outside of my current embodiment, and take on all the qualities of what that perception actually represents, and find understanding in it. And then sometimes it's just really palpable to just move the energy to just
Well, one of my favorite ways of doing what you just said, as far as like getting yourself outside of the situation, is if anyone feels like they don't have the means to see outside of the situation, kind of like you're in a mind loop, then if there's someone in your life that would have the answer, oh man, if I could just talk to this person, I have that person in my life. Then sometimes I'll go, what would that person say? And I'll use my imagination. So all of a sudden I'm in a different faculty of mind. I'm not in my mind. I'm out of my mind in the faculty of imagination, which is a totally different frequency. So I'm already in an altered state than that which I was in.
Right.
And I'm saying, what would I imagine this person say? And then that person starts saying exactly what you need to hear, and you could start shifting. When you realize that, because a lot of us will think like, I'm just connecting to that person's soul, or I'm downloading their transmission. When you realize that you're projecting that version of them, and it's you talking to your own higher mind, then you can even skip that process and go, okay, higher mind, what do you have to say? But go with what works. And usually what works for most people is that one person, that one mentor, that person that just really speaks to them. And this is like part of, in Course in Miracles, it says, I will send you teachers. Like everyone will experience God's teachers. Most of us have someone in our life that we would consider someone that has taught us a lot about who we are. And we go and we imagine that person and go, what would they say? Usually they're saying what we know anyway. It's just we're not in the right state of being to hear and to receive.
That's huge. That's such a huge. So listening, bringing back to our other conversation we were having, is a willingness to listening is such a fertile space so that we can attune our
and
capacity.
Sometimes, like you said, sometimes with the listening, we have an expectation that we just need to get the answer right in the moment. We go, okay, I'm listening. I don't hear anything. It's not working. It might not need to come that way. You might need to ask the question and not get anything. And then the next day, hear it on a podcast. Because for some reason, it was more important for you to hear it on the podcast, because then that encouraged you to reach out to the podcast person. Now you're on the podcast. And maybe that's 10 times more important than you realizing it the day before. So it's also about having no insistence on how you receive it and saying, okay, my only job is to inquire and ask the question of what's coming up, what belief am I holding on to that's not true about me? And if I don't get an answer and I'm using my imagination, I'm doing the best I can, then I need to know. And this can be challenging for some people, but I need to know that I don't need to know right now, and let me continue and flow on the next most exciting thing in my life.
Yes.
And not to dwell. It's like they say in A Course in Miracles, they say, look at the crucifixion, but don't dwell on it. Why we spend so much time dwelling, oh, this is the bad thing. Let me keep telling the stories about why it's so bad. Well, look at it to recognize it, and then that's it. That's all you need to do. Move on and respond.
Right.
Yeah.
Ascend from the crucifixion. And it's bringing me back to just the art of allowing and living in appreciation of the perfection of the moment. And if we can do that, it'll usually come online faster just by the nature of our embodiment of synchronicity. And sometimes there is an exact, precise alignment that needs to configure itself, like you just said, to get us on the podcast or to line us up with a really important relationship in our lives, or whatever the case may be, and to trust that. And in the field of listening, one of my favorite things to do, and this is actually really powerful for attuning our psychic capacities too, is there's not really, sometimes I'll ask a question, and I usually, just because my field's open, I can hear the information drop in pretty rapidly. But the whole key for me is to listen for frequency. So I'm actually just listening for the tonality of my environment, and to even saturate in the field of silence itself, to gain a depth of refinement in my sensory technologies, so that I can just have access to more of who I truly am. And to bring it all back to the core with all of what we've been discussing, because there's all these little nuanced places that we can go into, and there's tools and there's technologies and there's rituals and ways that we can navigate. I would call it, the labyrinth of our experience in a lot of ways. But what is the core and what is the focal point? And in my experience, it's always been the connection to truth. And like you said, those 5 immutable aspects of reality and law, and who and what we all truly are. And so we can go into the space and place of becoming intimate with that dimension of self and programming ourselves with that intelligence. When other things arise, it becomes, in a lot of ways, you can just do a side by side and go, is this true?
That's exactly it. It gives you something to compare to. Like, really, for me, what's worked for me and what I've just found to be true through my own experience, plus, the 20 plus channels on the planet that are bringing through extraterrestrial consciousness from, with technology and consciousness thousands of years more advanced of us, like maybe they're on to something. So not just from my own experience, but from help, and it's like if you're watching and you go, oh, well, I just doubt that that's real. My invitation is go take the information. Don't worry about if it's real or not, and go apply it and see for yourself. Because I'm at a place within my being where I know what I know because it works. And when other people apply it, it works. And at this stage, it's just an observation of how things work. And so knowing that, you have then, okay, a simple test. Are you acting on your joy, on your excitement every moment to the best that you can with no insistence of a result or outcome? And even when there is something negative, are you using it in a positive way? Are you integrating that aspect of it? Because if you're doing that, it is an impossibility to struggle in life. It is an and this isn't philosophy. This is physics. You're actually doing that. It is physically, emotionally impossible to have the idea of struggle, because struggle, this is what struggle is: resisting your natural self. And that is just a description of what it looks like to be the natural self.
Right.
So once you have that, you go, oh, that's my natural self. Does this thing over here, does me doing this, does this person acting in this way, does this allow me to be my natural self as fully as I can? Yes or no? And then you have a clear discernment, which takes a high level of self-honesty to see where we may be painting the picture with our own judgments and projections and these sort of things. But the more transparent we are with the self in that situation, the more transparent the situation is to the self.
Yes. And the higher our sensitivity is to it too. So the contrast becomes really well clarified through the lens of that transparency. And then we can make a really true choice.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, that's stunning. And it's just ease. It's easefulness. It's allowing ease. It's allowing.
And then there's challenge. There's always challenge, but then challenge becomes exciting. It's like, I'm very challenged with finding the 13 crystal skulls of Atlantis. This is challenging stuff. I mean, this is like protected property. This is like being of a certain frequency to allow the synchronicity to unfold in a certain way because there's timing. This is like connecting with different people in the world and around the world. I mean, there's a whole thing that this is like, this calling is unfolding that many people are connected to this idea. But is it exciting? Oh my God. It's so exciting. Like if I just found all the 13 crystal skulls in my backyard, I'd probably be kind of disappointed. That's it? They're just in my backyard the whole time? That'd be more dramatic.
I thought it'd be more of an Indiana Jones adventure.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I have an invitation if you're open.
Yeah. Yes.
So might it be magical and fun and really intimate to play with, to speak to the skulls and ask them where they are and to reveal themselves in fun, magical, heart-inspiring ways, and to maybe just start cultivating a relationship with them and to ask them to bring you guidance and clues or just direct knowing.
Yeah. So I actually know where all of the 13 skulls are. Generally. Yeah. So yes, to the specific location, what I've received recently, I gave a transmission, and leaving that transmission, I had so much energy going into my body. I left the room and I put my hands on Sophia, because I said, there's just so much energy going out of my hands right now. I feel like I need like a circuit, like a ground. Let me put it into you. So I am. And then she goes, why don't you take this energy and direct it back into yourself and up and connect to whatever you want to connect to? And I said, oh, that's a great idea. So I went inside and I got into meditation, and I had this profound energy rushing through me, and I directed it with the intention and inspiration into the crystal skulls. And one thing that I got was, so I have the locations. I believe 5 are found. It's either, I think it's 8 are found, 5 are still not found, or it's 5 and 8. I don't remember. But I have the locations of the ones that are not found. Bashar gave a transmission on all the relative areas. And so now tuning into those areas, I go, okay, there's going to be some continuity between the areas. and there's going to be something that guides us very effortlessly. And so I tuned in to what that may be.
Yeah.
And what I got was, in each general area, there's a set of ley lines and electromagnetic grid points, and that we can find those with dowsing rods, and we can allow the energetic grid to lead us to overlap some sort of temple space or some sort of area, which to us, through synchronicity and through just intuition, we'll know when we find it.
Yes.
And so when I got that, I actually was able to talk to Bashar live 3 days ago, and I asked him, said, hey, number one, so I had a couple questions about the skulls. Number one, each skull represents an archetypal attribute of ourself. And there's these 13 different attributes, and they all are a certain archetype, and each archetype also has their own harmonic signature, which can be sung and expressed in chanting. So every skull has its own signature chant, that when you chant it, not only are you drawing energy out of the skull, you're drawing energy out of yourself.
Yes.
You're activating your own DNA. And so I kind of came to that full conclusion, because when he said they're all being sung, I said, they're sung to. I'm like, they must be different songs. And then he mentioned archetypes. There must be a different chant for each one. So I asked him to confirm. So you saying that we have different specific chants for each skull based in the archetype of the skull? Yes. And so the one that I'm particularly drawn to in Hawaii, called Pele, that's the archetype, is Pele. And Pele as an entity, she is the Hawaiian goddess of creation, and like that deep connection to earth and creation and passion and destruction. And that's the archetype. And I said, so what's the chant? And he gave me a chant called the Hawaiian War Chant. And the Hawaiian War Chant, actually, this is my own transmission that I've received. Actually, some of the language in that isn't Hawaiian, it's Atlantean. And so because all of these were created with Atlantean chants, and that's a lost language. It's just pieced in Aztec language and Sumerian language and other languages. It's kind of spread out. And so we're looking at primarily this Hawaiian chant as a lot of it being actually Atlantean in origin. And so I started chanting it to myself, because I realized I stopped trying to look for the skulls. Hey, I don't need to look for the skulls.
Yeah.
I need to find the skulls within myself.
Yes.
And I started chanting, and I'm driving in the car, and I'm chanting. And Solara, 20 minutes later, I had to pull over. I'm having this full experience. The energy in my body is so intense. It feels like moments before an ayahuasca experience. It feels like like you drink, when you drink ayahuasca or any psychedelic, there's that moment where you feel this wind up of energy come through your spine, where you're like, and then at any moment you can just go, boom, I'm out of my body. It felt like that. I like this winding up of like, poke me and I can explode.
Yeah.
And I started having some interesting visions about the skull and what it looks like, and its red hue and fire and different sort of things. And so that just happened 2 days ago. And so I'm still, in that experience of this whole thing. So
they were giving me a visual of 13 beings carrying the blueprint or the code for the specific chants for each of the skulls, and when they each chant together, it acts as a key to harmonize and synchronize the codes for all of the skulls together.
For the master skull, and put them together,
Right.
Yeah,
so
because when I got the vision too, I saw 12, and then one in the center being the 13th, and everyone in black robes, and everyone chanting and creating a certain harmonic, and it being that's the primary experience of the meetings. It's a primarily a harmonic resonance experience. It's not like you think you're at a council and you're just talking and this and that. It's like such a profound understanding of vibration that's transmitting all the energy and information to each other that they need.
Yes,
was what I kind of sensed.
And the profound impact that has for the energetics of the planet, and the the one that my soul is called to over and over, and the one that continues to speak to me. I can't tell you how many golden skulls have come to me in different ways since I've been back, but the Bermuda. it just, she speaks to me continue, and she keeps showing herself to me even when I'm not in the realm of
That's the master.
Yeah.
That's the master skull, guarded by the dolphins.
Yes.
Which in Atlantis, according to Bashar, they would build temples that would have these massive canals that would go all the way to the ocean, so dolphins and whales could swim into the pyramids and commune and hang with the Atlanteans. And so they had like a very amazing intentional relationship with land and sea.
Yes, and all. And this is fascinating because, well, and I love, and this is how we originally connected in the house, on our 13, and how we each channeled through the 13 in such a unique and distinct way, but the core blueprint represents the same. It's the same exact energetic. At the core. And I love how, well, that started channeling through the 13 together as one, having that celestial bridge, ultimately transmission, started coming through for me around 4 years ago. I was getting visions of this council, and I didn't fully know how it was going to unfold or transpire, or what the implications were, what the purpose. Well, I mean, I knew what the purpose of it was, to awaken collective planetary consciousness and ultimately allow us to create more meaningful, sustainable, systemic changes in the world. But I'm just so thankful that I actually, the day before we had that conversation, I said, Source, send me the 13.
Wow. I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, well, it's a powerful archetype. 13 represents transformation itself. It's in the tarot, it's the death card. And so 13 is, society makes it out to seem like it's an unlucky number. It's because mostly those that believe they're in power, which that's a whole nother conversation. What's power, false power, this sort of idea. That if we understood the implications of 13, then we would understand the importance of transformation. And then we started asking questions around, well, what is transformation? How can I transform things? I am a transformer, those sort of ideas. That's even the synchronicity with the movies, Transformers, like that's what we are. Yeah. And so the 13, when I channeled, or when I got the 13, it was really just 13 different principles of consciousness. And it really just started with our relationship with God. And then it was our relationship with the collective and physical reality, our relationship with our personality self, our ego, who we think we are. It's our personality with fear, our relationship with fear. And within that, all of the aspects of fear, that 13 actually different aspects of fear that I talk about. And then it was our relationship to relationships, people, as our relationship to abundance and service, our relationship to truth and morality, knowledge, our relationship to our physicality and action and ritual and creation. And I'm leaving out a couple others, but it just came through as, okay, when that came through, I said, I could see these 13 principles growing, and I could see them expanding in depth and in perception. But from this point of view, from this now, I can't see a 14th step. Can't see a 14th dimension. And it made so much sense in that moment. I said, that's because 13 is the transformational energy for physical reality. And yes, we have a 12-step program. And the 12-step program is for those that are addicted to substance. This is a 13-dimensional equation for those addicted to fear. And so that's ultimately how it came through as, let's bring these 13 dimensions of consciousness to and for everyone as a reflection of what the 13 crystal skulls really offer, which is a web of stability, of knowledge, of wisdom, of love, of harmony with nature, of being able to identify as nature, to be in our own true nature as a unique aspect of creation and our highest excitement and passion, and to honor the diversity that creates the unity of the planet. And so this 13 skull whole mission, while it sounds fantastical, is really this beautiful reflection of the collective integrated body of Gaia returning to a golden whole frequency, not a collection of parts, not a compartmentalized, fragmented self, but a united whole that then is reflected in a physical and non-physical way. The physical way being the skulls, the non-physical way being the energy, the wisdom, the knowledge that they imbue and offer to the collective in a more direct way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Stunning. It's just, I'm seeing the avatar of in the 13 being the total sum embodiment of the blueprint of infinite cosmic creation itself, and having that totally well integrated, as in integrity, being integral and through all the dimensions of our embodiment. And the primary way that we do that is through relationship, which just brings me back to this stunning quote. My friend Carolyn Elliott shared it with me. I used to write for her magazine, Witch, and she said, magic is intimacy with reality. And so it's really are we having a harmonic relationship to our reality? And that harmonic is what creates the sync of the synchronization of the synchronicity. And so when we harmonize to all dimensional facets and parts that you just spoke into, and we're embodied in total coherence, then we are in integrity with the blueprint of creation itself. And of course, with that, all of the perceptions and all of our filters are totally clarified, and we're drinking from the wellspring of infinite abundance and creation and energy and love and all of this. And it's fused in our physical vessel, and then extends out through all dimensional facets of our life, and then ultimately the entire quantum field, and can, bring the new earth. Are you with me, beloved? Well, Brandon popped off, so I will take that as a beautiful, beautiful point to complete. We love you guys so much. Thank you for joining us and hanging out with us. I hope that you were able to extract the diamonds and rubies and pearls and jewels that were most meaningful for you. Brandon, if you tune back into this, I love you, brother. Thank you so, so, so much for just your presence in my life, and your magnificence, and your pure, palpable transmission, and all the work that you're doing in the world, just by being who you are. Love you guys. Connect in with you soon. Mwah.